This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome to episode 59 of Cooking with Grief, the lifeboat in the storming puddle, the creme brulee to finish off a bucket of discount fried chicken, the last echoes of humanity's shattered collective psyche played over an advert for a house odds bingo website. I'm Chris and I have ideas above my station about what this podcast is capable of. But joining me as ever to put the world to rights once and for all, a man, possibly the only man, who has ever said boo to a goose and lived, it's Chris.
Hello. That is not actually true. I died. No.
Oh, right.
But a goose did hiss at me a few months ago,
Sure.
and my initial reaction, like my automatic reaction, was to stick two fingers up at it and tell it to piss off.
That's quite,
quite a
extreme
reflex.
form of a boo. Yeah.
Hey,
Piss off.
It hissed at me first.
You sure it was a goose?
Yeah,
I don't think it... I always think of gooses as sort of ha ha ha, like a Jimmy Carr laugh.
Geese hiss. Canadian geese.
Sure, they're
That's
not
why
snakes.
everyone hates them. Everyone hates Canadian geese because they're like vicious bastards.
The unsuccessful sequel to Everyone Hates Chris.
Everyone hates Canadian geese.
So I mean, still like voiced by Chris Rock, obviously.
Doesn't scan as well into the theme song.
No, everybody hates geese. So yeah, despite my baffling intro, this podcast is about us two Chris's and a fact each that we've learned about in the week, and we bring it to the table like a nice offering of a smorgasbord of historical content from history or art or science or whatever, and we just chew it over and make some jokes. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah, well, obviously you've been almost on jury service.
Yeah, I was essentially on standby for 2 weeks and then let go pointlessly. So that was a completely dull experience, and in the meantime, work has been awful, but at least it's absolutely boiling hot. So, swings and roundabouts. As in, it's probably quite a nice place to sit at the minute on a swing and or roundabout.
Oh, no, not one of the metal ones that'd be scorching.
Yeah, the death metal slides of our childhood.
Oh, yeah, you definitely would want that.
And then, like, sometimes you got the plasticky ones, and they were just, like, static magnets. So it's either electrocution or burning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being a witch throughout history.
I was going to say, it's like one of those things where you're offered your choice of execution.
Who picks burning? Who like, actively picks that?
People who massively overestimate their own sort of...
Flammability? Or inflammability?
Pain tolerance.
Obviously, as an ex-baker, I've grabbed a tray that I thought would cool down, and that it's smart.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I've always wondered is, when people, in films or whatever, or in real life, and they say, how do you want to die? When the bad guys got you or whatever. I don't know why nobody ever just says, old age. And then it's like, shit. God us. He's got us there.
Is it, if a Bond villain and his goons has captured you, is that legally binding that they go, well, we have to honour?
Yeah, I think so.
Surely they could just put a bullet in your head and go, what a cheeky answer. I
mean, they
will forgive many things.
Not if they have any honour.
Their whole career path is one forged without honour.
Well, I mean, yes. You've got me there.
You're right, and there was me thinking the plots of James Bond were logic proof. Good. Well, as ever, our ability to not make small talk is pretty consistent. So, as we said last episode, we're doing one topic each now these days, just while it's tricky for us to record. So hopefully we get to record more often. That has not proved the case, but we're hoping that it will do. So, Chris, why don't you give us your topic?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a topic that we like here at Cooking with Grief, and that's harmless conmen, or mostly harmless conmen. Because obviously we're not a fan of actual conmen who, trick grandmas out of their life savings, that type of thing. That's just mean. But, we've previously mentioned the guy who conned his way into a NASCAR race that probably lost him money overall, and yet disappeared into the night.
Yeah, I think if the con can be synonymous with hijinks.
Yes, exactly.
Or low jinx,
or even,
some sorts of jinx.
Or even shenanigans.
Tomfoolery is great.
Yes.
Actual pain and suffering is not what we're a fan of.
Exactly.
Despite the name.
Yeah. Ironically named.
Conning with grief.
So, this tale I want to tell you about is about a footballer who never played football. He's been called the greatest player who never played.
With our majority American audience.
Oh, yeah, we mean soccer. Soccer, yeah.
Okay, the game of kicks.
Which is actually the Italian. Calcio is literally just means like kick or something like that. But anyway.
Hey, you want to kick?
Yeah, that's it. Let's go play kick. This is the story of a Brazilian footballer, and that's in the loosest possible terms, called Carlos Kaiser. Bit of a Germanic name. Apparently that was like all those Brazilian footballers, who end up with like a nickname. Carlos Kaiser, and he was playing back in like the 70s and 80s. Or I say playing. This is what the tale is set in the 70s and 80s in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And basically, this guy wanted to live like a footballer, in the glamorous life of being a top-flight footballer, but wasn't actually any good at football. But what he was really good at was being a conman.
And a handy plan B.
He'd use his like charm and smarm to like get himself ingratiated with the team owners or presidents, or whatever, somebody important, and would then give them like a false footballing CV showing how great he is.
Like, so he just had an essay describing on paper how good he was at football, and at no point did they ask him to demonstrate any of these skills.
Well, I assume it was a list of teams he supposedly played for, and you'd get people to
right. Okay.
rather than an essay.
Qualifications. I'm really good at throw-ins. It says here you're really good at throw-ins. I'm so good at throw-ins. Honestly, I'll throw it so far.
I don't know how he did it, but that does kind of sound like what he'd do. And then he'd apparently weave webs of lies and basically get people to vouch for him until the tangled web of people vouching for him, nobody could remember who originally, someone be like, oh yeah, he told me, and like I trust his judgment. So, the coach told me and he's got great judgment. And then somebody else would be like, oh yeah, but the physio told me he's got great judgment. And then it would turn out that there was never any original one. It's a bit like, when kids go and ask your mum for permission. It's like, ask your dad. And then you just go and say, oh, mum said yes. And your dad goes, all right, okay then.
If you had to go through the entire family,
yes,
until your mum's going, well, I did hear from Aunt Cheryl that there was something about a sleepover at your friend's house. Yeah. So, yeah, checks out.
Exactly. So there's so what he did, do this, get picked onto the team, and then he basically feign an injury that would keep him out for a few months.
So unlucky.
Yeah, well, apparently it got to a point where he'd literally, because he kept changing teams, so obviously you can't keep this up too long, so he changed teams a lot. But it got to the point where he'd pay, young players to, tackle him really heavily in training so that he could feign an injury, so to give him an excuse for why he's hurt himself. And, he'd have these mystic injuries. And apparently as well, again, using his smarm and charm, whilst he was quote-unquote injured, he'd just end up becoming such a popular member of the dressing room that they'd all want him to stay because he's just enjoyable and good for morale, which kept him there. And I say, he did this for nearly 20 years.
What? That is a long time. I mean, I know it's the 70s or whatever, but and are we talking the Brazilian equivalent of the Premier League?
Yeah. He was in the top division. He played for the big four teams of Rio de Janeiro, which it's Fluminense, I think. So I do have a list of his clubs. Flamengo, Botafogo, Fluminense and Vasco da Gama, who are the big four. For the big Brazilian teams, the big ones in Rio de Janeiro,
and never played a single game.
So just looking at his stats, he did actually spend a lot of time making some appearances for a team in Rio called America. And he said he made, and this was right at the end of his career in 1990 to 91. He apparently made 81 appearances. I haven't actually read much about this, but the previous, from 1979 to 1989, he made a grand total of 1 appearance, and yet was on books of different teams for every season.
In what position?
Supposedly a striker, and
Oh, right, okay.
apparently on one game he going back to his his tried and tested method. He'd won over the chairman of a club. Only this chairman was a notorious gangster in Brazil. Apparently he was he was apparently called the most dangerous man in Brazil at the time. He was like a proper high up mob boss. Mm-hmm. But he loved Carlos, and he thought he was a great player. And they were coming into a key game, and he was about to be subbed on. And he basically knew that if he went on and showed how shit he was, he'd be, found out and, possibly murdered.
Probably.
And yet also knew if he refused, then that would be obvious, and again, probably murdered. So what he did was he started a fight in the crowd. And it says that he, I've seen it reported that somebody did insult him from the crowd, but I feel like, honestly, given everything else, I feel like he may have just made that up entirely. But either way, he at least pretended or did hear an insult from a spectator, did an Eric Cantona and charged into the crowd to drop kick him, started a brawl in the stands and got sent off before having to go on the pitch.
Well, I mean, if it worked.
Yeah.
A niche reference for, like I said, our mostly American audience. But what I love about the commentary for that Cantona kit.
Should we just set the scene for anyone who didn't know?
Football player drop kicks a fan.
Yeah, basically.
But the commentator is already at 10, so he's going, "This is an absolute shocking display." He's giving it all, and then he drops. He's punched someone, or he's scrapping.
If I recall, he was already being sent off for something else.
And then he has brought the game into disrepute. And then the commentator's going
off the pitch. A fan said something which led to Cantona, running and drop kicking it.
Yeah, and the commentator going, "Oh my God, he's done a kung fu kick."
But obviously, Eric Cantona was actually good, unlike this guy.
And what, retired in wealth, or?
Apparently,
got
it didn't really matter, because I don't think he was ever really found out. He apparently, even when he had no money, he was able to just somehow blag his way into all the VIP sections and stuff. Apparently, one of his things was he'd show people highlight reels of playing football. Only it wouldn't actually be him; it'd be somebody else. But and grainy videotape from the 80s, nobody could really tell who was who. So as long as it looked vaguely like him, he could be like, "Yep, that's me." It's going in that.
Yeah, Pele is my nickname.
Yeah, and there's an absolute great quote from him, because like I say, he ended up being quite beloved by people despite not playing football and stuff. And he says, this is a quote from him: "I wanted to be among the other players, I just didn't want to play. It's everybody else's problem if they want me to be a footballer. Not even Jesus pleased everybody. Why would I?" Which is quite a thing to be I just like to pretend to play football and get paid for it, even without playing. I'm basically Jesus.
Bloody Jesus, a people pleaser over here.
Yeah, apparently his teammates would quickly work out that he wasn't actually very good. When he did play drills.
But just liked him.
Well,
that's it. They say if you want to rob from a building, go in with a hard hat, a clipboard, a high vis dress, and just walk confidently.
Oh yeah.
And people will pretty much let you take anything out the building.
Oh, when I worked
in a
supermarket, or just before I started working in a supermarket, because it was I joined just after they'd sort of expanded it, so there was building work going on. Or there had been. And yeah, apparently 2 guys walked straight in high-vis jackets and hard hats, like looking like they were working on the extension thing, and just walked straight into the back and took a TV, and nobody stopped them.
Yeah, and honestly, like if you're stealing from massive corporations, fine.
Yeah,
fine. As long as no one gets fired for it. Yeah, fine. It's like like this guy. Like, who's losing sleep over like football club owners getting,
especially when they're also gangsters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is that as well. But it's not even like swindled, because if he's a credit to the team, like honestly, if everyone knew that, well, if the players at least, they should have been just like, mate, just pretend to be a physio, and then you get to come to games. You don't have to keep pretending.
No, but he didn't want. He wanted to be like the man. He wanted the adoration. Yeah. Again, another thing he apparently did was to pay people to start chanting his name, which incidentally is also what Dick Turpin, the highwayman, did on his way to his execution.
Turpin.
Yeah, he paid people to pretend to. He paid a
cry,
troupe of actors to walk after him and cry and stuff.
I mean, if you've got the money,
right? Exactly.
It's nice to pretend people care about you.
Like you said, just the confidence and brazenness to somehow pull this off for like 20 years.
There are times when, like, I know for a fact I'm meant to be somewhere, but I still feel like I'm doing it wrong. The idea of walking into a building and just going, yeah, no, I belong here.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were to turn to a life of conmanery, if that's a word, what would...
Or would I try and con my way into?
Yeah.
I reckon astronaut. Jeff Bezos is doing going into space, just like sort of con people into being like, oh yeah, I deserve to be on this plane, or Richard Branson or whatever. Just like walk in, bring my own helmet, no one will notice, sit at the back.
Oh, don't mind me, won't make a fuss. Oh, I brought my own helmet, it's fine. It's like, oh well, we will save quite a lot of money on that. Yeah, that's fine.
What would you con your way into? Office supplies.
Yeah, like I just if I went for a job and didn't get it, I'd just turn up and start doing the job until they, make myself invaluable. Like, just make the best brew. Go and buy like the best tea, the best coffee. Like, make it and like, oh god, love that guy. And the shifty looking egg fella.
I mean, that just sounds like you just want to open a cafe, really. I think that's a real dream.
Yeah, sorry. What I mean is, I quite like coffee. But, it's a dream's a dream.
And on that note, I think we've exhausted Carlos Kaiser, the wannabe footballer. Well, over to you now then for, I was going to say, your first and last topic.
Chris, you're a man of the world. You've now lived 3 decades. You've travelled a fair bit. You've learned the ways of things and whatnot. Where do babies come from?
Well, when mummy and a daddy love each other very much, although nowadays, thanks to science and stuff, you can probably have like a mummy and a mummy, or a daddy and a daddy, or a mummy and a daddy and a daddy, and it's far more than... There's a lot of combinations that didn't exist back whenever these books were written.
Yeah, I mean, that's as I understand it. I did not know that love was involved. I thought it was an act of hate. I suppose it can be, with the right consent. Yeah. So where did the stork come into it?
I don't know. Did it just like to watch?
Yeah. Correct. My topic is about pervert birds.
Owls
what
right up there.
Oh yeah,
massive eyes.
They're constantly shocked by the debauchery. They get a full 360 rotoscope of the filth. Yeah, so I want to talk about where the origin of the idea that storks bring babies come from. I thought it might be fairly recent. It sounds like the sort of like Christian myth. Mm-hmm. Of like not wanting to talk about sex because it's evil and wrong, even though God made us and we're perfect. Like, if you're on your knees to pray, good, but like below the belt, it's just all sin. Mm-hmm. But like the rest of it's fine. So I thought maybe it was just like a modern story. But we can go back as far as ancient Greece. Well, we can go further than ancient Greece, but we'll start off with ancient Greece.
What, another one of our favourite topics.
Yeah. Like we're gonna hit all the greatest hits. So there's a story where Zeus, because he's an absolute horn dog, is having an affair with the queen of the pygmies, which I feel like pygmies has a different modern connotation.
It does,
but it's a tribe of Greeks. The pygmies. So the queen's called Garena, and Hera, who is Zeus's wife, gets jealous and takes revenge. Turns Garena
such
into
like standard Greek story. Zeus thinks about Hera gets angry.
Zeus is a fuckboy and shags anything that moves in increasingly like difficult scenarios. He gets bored of being able to do it as Zeus, so he turns himself into a swan and is still a seductive swan. Hera turns Garena into a stork and banishes her from her tribe. But Garena didn't want to abandon her newborn baby, presumably because it's Zeus's love child. Mm-hmm. Wraps the baby in a blanket and carries it off in a beak.
Okay.
So as far as ancient Greece, there is at least precedent of storks carrying babies.
Yeah.
And we can go back further to ancient Egypt, which we also like.
Okay.
In ancient Egyptian mythology, Bennu, who is a deity, I assume that's how you put it, Bennu, maybe, a deity of birth and rebirth, was represented by a stork and carried a squawk. It's just an onomatopoeic sound, just a squawk. So before the Earth, there was just an ocean called Nun, I think, Noon. Bennu, as a stork, flew over these waters carrying babies and would cry out creation. So, it's also, there's Shakespeare talks about
why a stork?
Well, he talks about
why not any other bird? I mean, I suppose an eagle carrying off a baby would be a bit more gruesome, right? So I get why it wouldn't be a bird of prey. Well,
I guess because the stork is one of the I suppose the real answer is it's one of the few birds that could carry something that size.
Why? How big are storks?
I don't know, but I'd probably say 40-foot wingspan.
Oh, that sounds reasonable.
An educated guess. So the thing I learned about this week is the sort of actual reason we humanity has associated storks with child delivery services, and the reason they crop up in Greek and Egyptian mythology is because storks are conveniently widely found all over Greece and Egypt. I mean elsewhere as well. There's probably storks in Kidderminster, but that's not relevant right now.
Yeah, Kidderminster wasn't a place yet, so it was irrelevant.
Good point. It's not like the three main hubs of the ancient world. Storks hunt. They're called leverets, which is the name for a baby hare. So little rabbit.
Okay.
Storks, when they hunt, they wound their prey, take them back to nests, and then kill them.
Oh, I take back everything I said about the eagle.
By comparison, at least the eagle's a swift mercy. To go back to our earlier conversation, storks the equivalent of burning to death, as opposed to the quick bolt gun to the. Anyway, and the screams of a wounded baby hare sound exactly like human baby crying.
Wow, this did get dark.
They're only rabbits. Let's not. They killed Napoleon. Let's
true.
have some perspective. So obviously, if you're an ancient Greek or an ancient Egyptian, and in the distance you see a stork flying, maybe just the silhouette against the sky, and it's clearly carrying a sort of bundle of something in its beak, and it sounds like a baby crying, which I assume the sound of which hasn't changed throughout humanity's history.
I imagine not.
Then you could easily see how they would think that storks carry babies.
Yeah. But it's just weird that they gave it such a benign twist. Storks devour babies alive in their own, like a serial killer with wings.
I think it's so it can teach its young to kill, which isn't exactly a lighter a tone. I've got some audio clips if you like. See if you can tell the difference between a human baby and a screaming baby hare. Clip 1.
Is that just you?
Shush. Clip 2.
Sure those are both just you, Chris.
Play along, mate. Okay, so I didn't know whether we would be I didn't know whether we would be able to, like, I couldn't find any free stock like audio of a dying rabbit.
I'm not sure our listeners would have wanted to listen to a dying rabbit.
It sounds exactly like a crying baby, which is just so soothing, particularly in a closed-in space like a plane.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely what people want to listen to in a podcast.
I mean, who are we to judge what people want to listen to?
Yeah, I'm just glad that you didn't decide to mix things up even more and be like, and now here's a rabbit that's having a fine time, and here's a dying baby. It's been devoured by a flying apex predator.
I don't know
if storks are apex predators.
Apex.
Yeah, I don't know what hunts storks. Probably eagles.
Maybe rabbits. Maybe
rabbits. Maybe adult rabbits. Adult hares.
Yeah, probably the mongoose. The mongoose will take on pretty much anything.
That's true. Or if we're in Egypt, probably a fair amount of crocodiles. I mean, I know, like, obviously storks can fly, and crocodiles, as far as I'm aware, can't. But
as far as you're aware. Come on, like, credit yourself with a little more, like, zoological knowledge. You know.
I just want to cover all bases.
Dear Cooking with Grief, I listened to the recent episode and I was offended to hear the insinuation that not all crocodiles can't fly.
That was a twisted way of saying that, wasn't it? Not all crocodiles can't.
Please excuse my English, it is not my first language. However, it's nice to get an email, which you can do at cookingwithgrief@gmail.com for all poorly ironic that I messed up the sentence. You get the gist.
I got the gist.
So next time you hear a baby crying, check to make sure it's not a wounded rabbit.
There's a good tip for all parents out there, all new parents. You think you have a baby in your crib, but you just need to double check in case it's just the remains of a dying rabbit.
You know that thing where someone shows you a baby photo, and even though it's an annoying blob, you've got to go, oh, you must be so proud. What a lovely human offspring, because you're not a psychopath. If they show you a photo of a mauled rabbit carcass, and you've got to go,
well, it's
that's indistinguishable from a human baby. Absolutely delicious.
Delicious.
You can tell that no one we know has kids.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. Like, I know my parents. Not to brag, but like, I mean, who's bringing kids into this world? It's fucked.
That's the spirit, Chris. Let's hope none of our listeners have kids either. We're planning.
Everyone makes great choices. Well, no, that's not true.
No, some people make terrible decisions. Some people don't subscribe to Cooking with Grief. That's a terrible decision.
I mean, they're not listening to this, are they?
No, so that's true. We're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, we're preaching to the people who only make good decisions.
Exactly. And for that, we're proud of you.
Save your friends. This is becoming like a cult. Like, you've got to save their, redeem your friends.
Exactly.
With their stupid decisions. This feels more like the outro.
Yeah, it does.
When we just sort of...
Well, I mean, I feel like we could just carry on and...
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Snip, snip, snip.
I mean, not even snip, 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 snip. Like a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But like normally would press stop and then do the outro. But we're already in the part where we're begging you to engage, despite never putting out an episode. So meet us more than halfway.
Yeah, come on, get more people. We'll make new episodes every extra 100 subscribers we get. We'll make one extra episode per year. Does that sound reasonable? Just one.
I mean, if you tweet us proof at Cooking with Grief, no G on cooking. If you send us a tweet like where you're telling someone to listen to the podcast, I will write you a haiku. Haiku. And then you say that as many times as it takes to fill up the syllables. They won't all be just the word haiku again and again and again. I don't know if I should have promised that. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm quite busy. I mean, better to promise a haiku than a sonnet, I guess.
That's true. Or a psalm.
Somehow that makes more like that seems more us. If you right for every 100 new followers we get between now and the next episode, I will write a song.
Oh god, we're making
And
promises.
that is a promise you can take to an illegal underground church. Oh.
Shall we?
I mean, that'll do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think we can say
thank you
goodbye.
very much for listening
Yeah.
to... thank you for listening.
You're staying this long?
Yeah, why?
It's good. Yeah, no, I think you were going to say it's good to be back, and it is.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these because of a number of factors.
Hopefully next
You know,
time
obviously,
we record, it won't be so uncomfortably warm.
people might find it laughable that the UK is struggling with 30-degree heat, but...
It hits different, tell you.
Yep.
It's a very humid
Yep.
country because it rains all the time, so it gets you.
And aircon just doesn't exist.
Does not.
So if you live in Arizona and you're like, well, it gets over 100 degrees, then try it without aircon.
But don't, because you die.
Try it briefly without aircon, and then be like, those poor British souls. Yeah, it's too hot. We've been recording for like just under an hour, and I'm absolutely dripping in sweat.
Yeah.
Because I had to shut all the windows, turn the fan off, wear my usual suit of armour.
Yep, your podcasting chainmail.
Yep, the old PCCM as we call it.
Call it in the biz.
Just be PC. A biz which we are held at arm's reach from. Be like, we've got our own chainmail. We brought our own helmet. We'll sit in the back. We just want to sit in the background of Joe Rogan's podcast. We won't say anything. We swear.
If you could get Joe Rogan to subscribe to us, we'll write 2 sonnets.
I'll fucking blow you.
And that's a promise you can take to the bank.
The sperm bank.
I'd love,
Yeah,
I'd love it if somehow that happened and then you've got to travel probably to America.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's got the most popular podcast in the world. Alright, he has to tweet. He has to endorse us, and then I will blow you.
Okay. So there you go, listeners. There's some interaction for you. Get Joe Rogan to engage with us, endorse us, and you'll get blown by a man who looks like a sweaty egg.
I like how you didn't go with a sweaty man who looks like an egg. More specifically, a man that looks like a sweaty egg. like an egg that has developed sweat pores.
Oh.
Well, there is your challenge and reward if you are so inclined. I've got an incredibly weak gag reflex, but other enthusiastic at least. Grateful.
Oh, this podcast took a weird turn. How did we get here? It's bad decision after bad decision.
You would have thought us hosting it would be one of the good decisions, but
Nope.
No, you listening to it is a good decision. Us hosting it and continuing to do it is not. But suffer along with us.
But not anymore, because we're finished.
Did you know that a man once jumped into a bulletproof window so much that he busted it out of the frame and fell to his death? I do. Hey, I'm Nicholas Howe, and I made an improvised comedy storytelling podcast about this death and many others. Using a multiverse of me's as the catalyst, I explore the various ways people have died. I also have special guests on and freak them out about how dangerous the world is. Did you know lakes can explode? You do now. Listen to the How Will I Die podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at HWIDIEPOD.